Hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure and a great honor for me to be able to introduce Dr. D.P. Khaitan, who is an immensely popular physician and very renowned for his knowledge and his skills, not just in medicine, even in cardiology as well. He's based at Gaya in India, which is a popular site considering this place where Lord Buddha has also been associated with. Dr. Khaitan has been contributing to the field of medicine and cardiology since a long, long time, I would say. He's retired from Gaya Medical College, and he has immensely contributed even to the academic field by even writing a book on ECG, which is really popular everywhere in different parts of the world as well. And currently is also the elected national president for CCDSI, the Cardiodiabetic Society of India, for 2020 to 21. It's really an honor for us so that he's able to share his valuable and important time with us and share his views about the arrhythmias and ECG changes in the current scenario for COVID-19. Thank you so much, Dr. Khaitan, for joining us.
Thank
Kindly.
you, Professor Dr. Narendra ji. Okay. This arrhythmia and ECG changes in COVID-19 is very pertinent and important topic to me, and also to all the doctors, all the colleagues listening to the speech. That's why I would like to discuss, first of all, the initial concept. The vast majority of the patients, even if they have the respiratory illness in the form of the acute severe respiratory syndrome or mid syndrome, whatever it may be, but in the cardiac symptoms, or the cardiac symptoms might be very minimal. These cardiac symptoms are mainly observed in cases where the patients are having myocardial injury, myocardial ischemia, hypoxia, shock, electrolyte disturbances like hypokalemia, hypocalcemia, or the hypomagnesemia, or those patients we are having the use of the prolonged QT interval drugs. That means that those drugs which prolong the QTC interval are injurious in this particular case. The basic concept would be clear by this sort of the sketch or diagram. The basic concept is the hyperinflammatory syndrome in the form of the cytokine storm. This cytokine storm is pathologically consisting of the infiltration of the interstitial tissues of the heart by macrophages and even monocytes. By definition, this is characterized by the hemoglobin count around about 9.3 or something like that, or WC 5,000 cubic millimeter, and even the platelets 1.5 lakhs. All should be in conjoined together. This constitutes the definition of cytokine storm, and this cytokine storm, if they comes in the patient of the CVS or cardiovascular sufferers, either these may be patchy in nature or may be diffuse in nature, depending on the severity of the storm. But when we use the term cytokine storm, that means in diffuse form. So recently it has been identified that the storm, though is diffused by nature, but maybe in somewhat different way, in somewhat less harming way, in the form of the patchy disturbance as well. So all the ECG changes, whether arrhythmias or the different ECG aspects changes with COVID-19 would depend upon the lesion, whether it is patchy or the diffuse. There are three sorts of the pathology here. One is in the form of the acute myocarditis by the pathological process itself. And the hidden process may be in form of the microvascular dysfunction leading to the microvascular involvement. And there may be plaque instability, and this plaque instability itself may get manifested in the form of the rupture. And if this rupture is there, then it may lead to the macrovascular endothelial dysfunction leading to acute coronary syndrome. This is the basic concept. So there are three things: acute myocarditis, microvascular dysfunction, and the macrovascular dysfunction leading to the acute coronary syndrome. These are the three things, basic things which we must understand. I admit all the colleagues know in details than whatever I know, but you just analyze now the EC changes in brief before going to the next slide. EC changes if the progression of impulses through the infiltrated or diseased myocardium takes longer time to travel up to the myocardium or different sorts of myocardial layers, then definitely the QRS interval will be prolonged more than the normal. And if due to the infiltration or cytokine storm sort of pathology, if there is a less contractile part of the myocardium, it may lead to the low voltage QRS itself. So these are two important points to be noted in every ECG, whether we are having the QRS prolongation or whether we are dealing with the some sort of the low voltage QRS. These initial points must be stated apart from the sinus tachycardia or apart from the rate and the rhythm disturbances. I will touch later on. The ST disturbance may be either in the form of the ST elevation or ST depression.
Can we go
This
to the
ST
next
elevation?
slide? Can we change the next slide as well, sir? Yeah, let's keep changing slides.
Yes. These basic cardiac complications we have to keep in mind. Arrhythmias and acute cardiac injury, whatever we have just discussed now, would be the most prevalent cardiac complications in confirmed cases of the COVID-19, number one. Number two, other patients might have present with the myocardial sort of the pathology like the myocardial injury, myocardial ischemia, myocardial infarction, acute onset of the heart failure, and even cardiac arrest. The patient may die even. There is a cardiometabolic disturbances due to the hypoxia, increased heart rate, stress and strain of the disease by the patients, difference of the arrhythmias. So this cardiometabolic demand on the plus side may exaggerate the condition, may make the conditions worsen, especially in those patients who are having the disease of cardiovascular system already beforehand. Cardiac arrhythmias encountered during COVID-19. There is a list of cardiac arrhythmias in medicine, no doubt. But whatever we are encountering more in incidents, we are discussing here. The most commonest one is the sinus tachycardia. The next would be atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, monomorphic and polymorphic VT. Bradycardia to a lesser extent, but we can get it, especially in those cases wherein the patient investigates the episodes of the syncope. Of course, we must be very particular in the estimation of the QTC prolongation, which may be encountered here by the disease itself, like the acute myocarditis or the other cardiovascular diseases like the myocardial infarction or ischemia, etc., or maybe beforehand itself, maybe beforehand by the presence of those drugs used by the patient which cause the QTC prolongation. Both the conditions are possible there. Now the question comes, what is the basic of recording? The basic of recording is that a 12 lead baseline ECG at the time of the entry of the patient to the healthcare system is very much important. But we may embrace the infection from the patients. That's why a single lead or multi-lead ECG from distant telemetry monitoring to minimize just the staff exposure to the patients. Otherwise, we have to save ourselves as well. That's why I'm telling you, we have to save the staff as well. Or ECG must be repeated whenever it is needed. The basic planning of ECG reading is usual as we do in medicines like the heart rate, rhythm, electrical conduction, axis determination, abnormalities of the QRS, ST changes, and QTC, etc. Am I clear to all? I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, Dr. Professor Nandji.
Yeah, please continue, sir.
Now, yes, ECG changes with the COVID-19. What are the things to be noted? Cardiac arrhythmias, already I have discussed in the form of the sinus tachycardia, atrial flutter, atrial fibrillation, monomorphic VT or polymorphic VT, etc. QRS related abnormalities like the widening of the QRS complexes, plus minus low voltage, pathological Q. This pathological Q in case of the COVID-19 sufferers with the heart diseases may indicate either there is a myocardial infarction or there is a very patchy condensed infiltration of the hyperinflammatory reaction so as to give the absence of the positive R wave. So the opposite part is being recorded in the form of the Q wave. But normally it indicates the myocardial infarction, whatever site it may be. The loss of R wave amplitude again indicates the same thing. The R wave amplitude reduction means the acting myocardium is less in amount to be recorded. That's why it may be the case of the poor R wave propagation. The same thing here. ST and T changes again. ST related to the subepicardial or epicardial injury, or it may be related to the endocardial injury or the changes. Accordingly, T changes must be recorded. Conduction disturbances, because heart also is having the conducting parts, is turning from the SA node to the AV node, from AV node to the myocardium through the his Purkinje system. So any part theoretically may be affected, but practically left anterior block is maximally encountered. Even the interventricular conduction delay, they are being seen in these cases. QTC prolongation recording is must, because this may lead to the TPD, Taussig de Pointes incidence. That's why we are recording very carefully or estimating very carefully the QTC interval, which is usually less than or equivalent or less than the 44 millisecond, 440 milliseconds in the case of the males, and the less than or equivalent to 460 milliseconds in the case of the women. If either it is prolonged, the QTC interval prolongation is there. We have to search the cause for the QTC interval prolongation. Just I am putting a few slides, just few slides, nothing to worry. Any short of the changes, whatever we have discussed up till now, may be seen on ECG, whatever. Just see the ECG here. In lead V1, we are seeing the biphasic P. The terminal part of the P is somewhat delayed and deep, which may indicate, postpose is indicating the left atrial enlargement. And we are also seeing the non-specific T changes, especially over the, you see over the anterolateral part of the ECG recordings, and also somewhat in other places as well. There may be, we are just looking at sort of the ST elevation in the form of the concave ST elevation from V1 to V3 in subtle form, which may indicate the myocarditis involvement as well. But subtle myocardial infarction can't be ruled out at this particular stage, especially septal one. The next ECG, of course, next ECG is the sinus tachycardia, by that is more than 100. Left anterior fascicular block, because the QRS axis is more than minus 30 degree here. As we are also seeing the ST and T abnormalities, just to see the ECG changes. And there is especially the ST elevation in the V1 to V4, better to say, with T wave inversion. These may indicate the anterior ischemia azurine, and there is a prolongation of the QTC interval up to the range of the 50.8 seconds. Very important point to be considered here. The third ECG is the sinus rhythm, no doubt. PR interval shorten. Here, sorting of the PR interval should not be thought in the term of the LGL. No, is the case not in the case of the LGL. LGL means the sorting of the PR with the previous history of the palpitation. The another recently term came into existence nowadays. It is known as the accelerated AV conduction. So, in light of the changes of acute myocarditis, we should prefer the term accelerated AV conduction, which is being reflected here by the short PR. Of course, left excitation is there, low voltage in the frontal plane or the limb leads. The evidence of the inferior infarct is there. Age later, of course, it is anterolateral infarct possibly acute. So this is a 40 years male with chest tightness, treated as pneumonia with EC changes, whatever we have seen here. All cases are confirmed COVID-19 cases by the test. QT prolongation. Patients receiving QT prolongation drugs, baseline just after coming to the hospital must be estimated, because it would guide us for the future purpose and also the present purpose. If the QT interval is at present 500 milliseconds, more than 500 milliseconds, or increases subsequently, or the change of the QT interval is more than either equivalent or more than 60 milliseconds compared to the baseline, our ears must be alert. It may give the sign of impending alarm or impending things to be considered there, just to consider the case whether we are getting benefit or we are getting harm, we are going to harm to the patient with this sort of the QT interval. Nowadays we are using of course the trend is somewhat changed. We are using the hydroxychloroquine. Nowadays the trend is again going against the use of these drugs. Even chloroquine is being challenged to cause the QT interval. So other drugs may be used by the patient, might have been used by the patient previously. So we have to consider the dose reduction or even the stopping of the drugs if we think so. So additional intervention may be needed with the patient. Now I'm touching some important part of the arrhythmias. I'm not going to discuss in details because already all the colleagues are familiar with all the things. I'm touching the very relevant points here. First, Torsades de Pointes. What is Torsades Pointes? Torsades Pointes, by electrocardiographical concept, indicates basically and pathologically the prolongation of the intramural or intraventricular dispersion. This sort of the dispersion causes the prolongation of the QT interval, which is responsible for the R1T phenomena. Due to the short, long, and short cycle, the R or T phenomena may be observed. If the more is the QT interval prolongation, more is the possibility of the Torsades de Pointes. This is a basic concept. And these Torsades de Pointes may be observed either due to some metabolic electrolyte disturbances or some hypoxic conditions or by disease itself. Disease itself means myocarditis, myocardial ischemia, myocardial infarction, or even the previous history of the cardiovascular disorders. This concept must be kept in mind. The two sorts of the things here, normally this Torsades de Pointes gets self-terminated, but sometimes there may be multiple self-terminating episodes, multiple in nature. Either it may be a single episode or it may be in the form of the multiple episodes. If it is a single episodes, I'm talking of the stable patients with the TDP. If the stable patients are with the single episodes, nowadays we administer IV magnesium. IV magnesium is very useful drug in this particular case because it reduces the incidence of the early depoison syndrome by preventing the influx of calcium inside the myocytes. That's why it is very useful drug nowadays. This IV magnesium may be administered either in the form of the 1 to 2 grams state, and we may repeat over the short period, say for the 15 to 30 seconds, and we may repeat the drug after say 5 to 15 minutes even, or depending on the situation, we may start the intravenous infusion itself in the form of the 3 to 7 milligram per hour, depending on the situation. So this is rough cell. Usually these stable patients of TDP, they get settled down after the correction of the electrolytes usually, and hypoxia and the general re-excitation processes and removal of the inciting agents. But in those cases but it's better to start the IV magnesium, I think so. With multiple self-terminating episodes, the same things would be applicable here. But since they are self-terminating itself by multiple inserts, so we have to increase the rate by drug IV isoprene infusion or by overdrive pacings. In both the conditions, the heart rate would be enhanced. So QTC interval will be shortened, and ultimately we may get rid of this Torsades de Pointes. So these are the things there. If the patient is hemodynamically unstable, ProSAD is pointless. In these cases, the answer would be cardiovascular, cardioversions or defibrillation. Initial treatment with antiarrhythmic medication like lignocaine may be required, but we don't administer IV vagination infusion. It is useless in these particular conditions. If the patient is first left, no patient is going to be benefited in these conditions. About the other arrhythmias, we treat as we treat the other arrhythmias in normal our indoor or outdoor patients. There's no much of the differences. That's why I'm not going to touch the part in details. Sometimes we may need the emergent procedures like the TB by the VT ablation for medically uncontrolled electrical storm in a hemodynamically compromised patient. What is the storm? What is the electrical storm? Electrical storm by definition is the occurrence of either VT, ventricular fibrillation, or even the ICD induced shocks, at least 3 in 24 hours. These very lethal conditions, the patient, if these sort of the patients meet with either with the medically uncontrolled electric storm in hemodynamically compromised patient, the patient may need VT ablation. And this catheter ablation, for instance, hemodynamically significant, severely symptomatic sensitivity, not responding to antiarrhythmic drugs, rate control, and even by the cardioversion process, cardiac catheter ablation sometimes may be needed, especially in the pre-excitation atrial fibrillation, when the patient may be in the stage of the stroke, in the stage of the syncope, or the patient may even have the cardiac arrest. Pacemaker implantation may be needed in selected cases, no doubt. The things I want to say to you that we doctors are serving to the society. We have to save ourselves and we have to save the patients as well. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has introduced this system of welcoming by folding all the hands together, because this system of welcoming don't allow or don't give the chance to come in contact of the hands of the either the patients or the common people who may have been suffering from the asymptomatic COVID-19 conditions. So by this sort of the process, we may save the community from further disaster as well. So it is the Indian start, say namaste or pranam by folded hands. I think it's a good start by our Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister. But we should have the bearing of always the personal protective equipment. Because personal protective equipment, we may injure ourselves, we may embrace the disease, or we may die even, we may spread the disease to the patients, to the community, and to the family members. So instead of serving the patient, 1 or 2 patients directly, we are harming the entire community. I think it is a very good practice if we we do the service with this personal protective equipment. Very important. And plus, the second message that this there should be allowance of the, we should allow only minimum staffs there to the site of the patient's care, because minimum staff means less chances of the infection transfer. It's very important. This intubation part, endotracheal intubation part, or even the cardiorespiratory system part, they are very injurious in the form, because they may spread the respiratory droplet infection to the surroundings. So by safer process, endotracheal tube cuffing process, they must be implanted before we see the case of the cardiac arrest. So with these things, I have put my view upon the subject, Dr. Professor Narendra Ji. So that's the points I want to share with all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khaitan, for sharing your inside views with your expertise and decades of experience. I must say it has been really a treat and really a wonderful experience for all of us over here, and the people who are sitting in the different part of the world as well, to listen to you and benefit from your decades of experience as well. Thank you so much for summarizing it really well. Really, it makes me wonder for some of the things, what has been some of those common arrhythmias which you think we do come across in these COVID patients?
Already I explained you, or explained the sir. The sinus tachycardia is the commonest one. The other arrhythmias we may meet with the in the form of the atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, even the VT part, either monomorphic or polymorphic, or the TDP. All these are the arrhythmias are usually encountered. So there is a list of the arrhythmias, but practically
Right.
the universe is seeing these sorts of arrhythmias in good number. Not in good number in the sense that they occur sometimes, and these very arrhythmias are not so mostly encountered. Sometimes the patients say we having some sort of the involvement with the AV node system the patient may have, or even there is no chance of sinus bradycardia. I've never heard of these particular cases, but anyhow it may have if the patient is having the sickness syndrome, sinus syndrome beforehand, and again there is a disease. They may have come, but the tachyarrhythmias are more common, I think. Yes, doctor.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Khaitan, again for sharing all these insights. And frankly telling, I definitely believe at least my knowledge and insights into this topic has definitely increased. And I'm sure this is also going to benefit the other people who all are going to watch this and are watching this streamline as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Khaitan, again. And I would wish you lots of good health and again a big thanks for you to be continuously involved across the platform of Global Heart Rhythm Forum, and you have been doing an amazing and incommensurable work, which is we all are always grateful to you. Thank you so much, and I wish you a lovely
Thanks, sir.